Okay, cool. Right. After a absolutely bizarre start, hopefully those people who did want to join this morning are able to come back and join. But we've decided that we'll continue with this recording, and even though these are only four of us on here in it, and that's okay. Um, just shows you how we have to be really careful about our technology. Anyway, after a bizarre start, I'd like to introduce everybody to Jan. Jan is a wonderful friend of mine, who has the most amazing um, depth of knowledge when it comes to growing things with her biodynamic background and just by her nature. Yeah, Jan Jan has been um, a coordinator for the garden group, that our local garden group, and has done a biodynamic course, and just is an absolute um, depth of information. So welcome, Jan. Thank you so much for being with us. And hopefully this recording goes out to everybody that wanted to watch it, because I know there were lots. And I know after that stuff, you're even more nervous than you were before. Okay, over to you, Jan.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you for this opportunity so I can share my wisdom on growing food intentionally. And I'm in New Zealand, in the North Island, at the bottom of the North Island on the west coast. And there's a lot of slither of land up the coast where I am, and it's an amazing area for growing food. It's a very temperate climate, and there's a lot of food growing that goes on where I am. And yeah, I'm sort of in my backyard, and it's a beautiful backyard. I'm very blessed to have it. I'm surrounded by lovely big trees, and I've established a lot of flower gardens and vegetable gardens, and even a lovely pond which the birds love. And I'm just waiting for the frogs to arrive. So I have a lot of diversity, with birds, plants. I'm just missing the animals, really. I've only got the neighbour's chickens, which come over every day. So biodynamics in my backyard. Are we doing any slides?
Oh yeah. Have we got the slides back up there? Awesome. Yeah. There we are. Have they come up on your?
Yes.
Yeah.
No problem. Yeah, so I'm just so grateful that I'm here today to share some wisdom and my experience with growing food for the last 24 years. And biodynamics has been part of that journey. And biodynamics is a holistical, sort of ecological, ethical approach to farming and gardening and food and nutrition. And I believe it gives you the best quality food that you could possibly eat and nourish your body. And biodynamics in my backyard looks like using, lots of energy. I've got great, everybody that comes to visit my property says there's just an amazing energy here, and yeah,
Mm.
everybody can feel it. They just said there's something a little bit different here. And I think it's um, just whatever I do on this property is with intention and love and um, and using biodynamic preparations, which is a tool for biodynamics that gives it its edge, is gives just spreads a lot of good energy around my property. Um, and biodynamics was developed by Rudolf Steiner, and he was an Austrian philosopher, and he was clairvoyant, and he developed biodynamics through agriculture lectures in 1924. So, 1924, so 100 years ago. Yeah, and that was after World War One, and it's pretty much a worldwide movement. It was the first green movement, so to speak, and then like all the organic movement happened after the Second World War. So yeah, I think Rudolf Steiner didn't really realize what he was doing, but he's given us a gift, a traditional way of gardening, and the industrial age of farming and gardening was really, like a quick fix, short-term quick fix. But I think gardening and looking after the earth long term, I think we have to go back to traditional ways of composting and nurturing the earth and the soil, and
Yeah,
yeah. So yeah,
our food's really no longer nutrient rich, and if we want to be healthy and um, enjoy the benefits of nature, I think we have to take it into our own hands now.
yes, yeah. I mean, the industrial age has depleted our soils. Really, when we grow crops, they have depleted our soils, and so we want to get back. We want to get back and nurture the soil, and introduce more compost and microorganisms. So, I mean, everybody knows the moon cycles, the moon phases. We've got the new moon, we've got the full moon, and we all notice that the energy changes at a full moon. It's like, the animals react to it. It's it's a very watery time of the moon cycle, and then we go back down to a new moon again, and the energy is not so high when there's a new moon. So that's how I garden with biodynamics. I'm physically going outside, and I know what the moon's doing, and the moon moves into different constellation every few days, and that has a huge influence with the energy that comes down to our soil. And it's just working with that energy that we can actually see in the sky, the cosmic energy. And so that's how I garden in my backyard. And the whole point of being organic or biodynamic is we're trying to do a closed loop system. We're trying to use everything on our land. Like I'll in autumn I'll collect all the leaves and all my crops that have finished in my garden, and I'll make a compost, and that'll be my food for my garden when spring comes around again. And hopefully we just use everything, and we don't have to bring anything from the outside and it becomes a self-sustaining system. And if we do have to bring anything in, like, there are the odd things we need, it's usually just medicine for the soil.
Well, not many of us have cows, so
yes,
that sort of thing is an important part of the biodynamic.
animal manure is very important, especially cow manure, to bring fertility to the soil and vitality to the soil and the plants. And yeah, we do, not like the old days, not many of us have got actually animals in our backyard anymore. So we have to rely on going searching for some cow manure or sheep manure or whatever. Yeah.
And it can't just be any cow manure, can it, Jan?
Well, ideally, we want to use organic biodynamic cow manure. So hopefully the animals, you know, have been looked after holistically and organically. Yeah, because some of those, you know, some of the drenches and things they use in animals, you know, they do kill some of the microorganisms in the soil, and we don't want that. We want to keep all the bacteria and fungi going in the soil. So yeah, as organically as possible would be nice when you go and collect manure. That's what I think. I like the chicken manure is great because yeah, pretty much they're all free range chickens and
yeah. And here in New Zealand we get the sheep and chicken manure pellets.
Yes, that's right. Well, yeah, you just go to the shop and buy the sheep pellets that are already done for you. Yeah, yeah, just mix them with water. So the most important factor is soil. Really, we can't live without that top 6 inches of soil. No one can live without that. We have to look after that soil. It sustains us. It's got all the nutrients in that soil that we need, and it goes into the plant as it grows, and we're obviously eating it to get the nutrition. So we have to look after that soil. We don't want to threaten the fungi and bacteria. We want to keep that alive and well, and everybody's working together in the soil because that's whatever's happening in the soil is actually giving the plant the food it needs, which then gives us the nutrients we need. So the soil is the most important.
Yeah.
What's the
next slide? Yeah.
So all plants, you know, they have a resonance and a form of connection and communication. What amazes me about plants, especially trees, is like they have a soul, and you can just feel, and you can just go and hug that tree, and you can just feel the energy of that tree, and with any plant growing, any vegetable or plant growing in your garden, they can sense light and shade, and so they can sense, you know, they can sense you coming quite close. You just walk past a plant and they can sense you. So they're very aware of everything. They obviously, if they get attacked by a pest, you know, they would probably, some plants are quite capable of reacting and putting up defenses. There's a few plants that actually are very good at that. But so I go around and I talk to all my plants. I always walk around my garden each morning or whenever I can, and I talk to all the plants. So, and with love. And so, and they respond. They just, if I went to a tree and said, "Oh my gosh, I don't like you, I'm going to cut you down," that tree would react. It would actually, it sense the hurt. And I've heard of stories where those trees will actually react, and as if they were blowing in a strong wind, and yet there was no wind around. And I think Maya's had a great story about trees, being able to talk to trees or listen to trees. And she told us a great story a few weeks ago. Yeah. So yeah, so all the plants and the trees, they are connected to the cosmos, the energy, and the birds play a big part too. The birds singing in the morning in the trees, you know, it's the same frequency that resonates with the trees, and that's, you know, that, I don't know what, it's just good energy for the tree. It keeps them healthy. So
it wakes them up.
It wakes them up. It wakes us up too.
Yeah. It wakes the tree up to what it has to do for the day.
Yeah. So all plants, whenever you're growing a plant, you know, in your kitchen or in your garden, if you talk to it, it's going to respond. And obviously you speak to it with love, and that can keep a plant healthy by itself. Yeah.
Who'd have thought?
Yeah. And observation, gardening with observation is very important, because you know, you can look at a plant and you think, does it need water? Does it need sun? Does it need air? You know, you can just tell by a plant it might be turning yellow and it needs a nutrient. It needs to be fed. So, and taking note of, one plant might be getting attacked by aphids. So at this time of year, it's spring here. And so we've got a few aphids turning up on the roses, which are about to open their bud. And so it's taking note of that and taking action, taking intentional action. I will either, well, if there's only a few of them, you can easily squash them, but otherwise I will make a special herb tea, and I will spray the plant, hoping to deter any more aphids. Yeah, and things like that. Yeah. So, and I always take notes. I've got a biodynamic calendar, and it tells me exactly where the moon is. Like the moon's in Capricorn today, which is a root sign. And so I will, if I was going to work in the garden today or work on any of my potted plants, I would work in the soil. I would feed the soil with a liquid fertilizer or something, or because we're in spring, I can now transplant my seedlings, which I've started. I can transplant those into the garden, and they will, and yeah, with all that cosmic energy that's concentrated into the roots today in the soil, it's going to create less stress, and they'll have a better chance of thriving. Yeah, so I'm working in anything to do with the soil today. If I was in the garden, I'd be working in the soil and transplanting plants. And I always take notes. I'll always take notes of what's going on in my garden, what the weather's doing, the temperature. And so I've got notes to compare, see how, you know, if anything goes wrong, I can look back and say, oh, well, that happened that day. That's why this is happening today. And we are, and today, and like when I garden, I usually use I don't put gloves on. So I've always got very dirty nails and broken nails. But yeah, just working with the soil, like just putting your hands through the soil is so therapeutic. It's like you're picking up all these beneficial bacteria and microbes, and it's been absorbed into your skin, and that's what we need. We've got microbes all over our skin and in our gut, and so the more that you can actually touch the soil, you're going to get the benefit of those microbes. It's called the good bacteria. And so it's being absorbed into your skin, and yeah,
it's the opposite of what we've been told,
yes,
isn't it?
Yes, it's like, yeah, they don't encourage children to go and play in the mud anymore, and that's the best thing you can do. Yes, because it builds up your immune system, and our skin and our gut is full of good bacteria, and that's how we get it. Is from touching the soil, and so when you add compost to your soil, it's got all the beneficial bacteria and fungi in that compost, and so it's now been transferred into your garden, and then it's going to be taken up by the plant, and that bacteria goes up the plant into the leaves, and it eventually goes into the fruit or the flower, and then eventually goes into the seed. And so you now have a seed that has that bacteria influence or bacteria in it, and it's the bacteria that gives us the nutrition. So that's how we get our nutrition, is through that bacteria. So we have to keep the soil alive, yeah, with all those microorganisms which you'll get if you look after the soil by adding organic matter, which is basically compost, or how your trees will drop its leaves in autumn. Yeah, so yeah, I collect the leaves in autumn, and I put them in a big wire cylinder, and I either layer the leaves with hydrated lime, or I layer it with cow manure, and then by a year later, this is only 4 months old, it hasn't really done much, they still look like leaves, they are breaking down slowly, and that it eventually becomes it eventually will look like lovely soil, and that's going to feed my garden as well. And it's also becomes my potting mix as well, just broken down leaves, but it takes about a year. But yeah, if you layer it with cow manure, they tend to break down a lot quicker for some reason than just using lime or
probably the bacterium in the cow manure.
Yes, yeah, that's probably true. Yeah, the bacteria and all the fungi, and yeah, so that's how we are getting the best nutrition, is through the bacteria and the fungi in the soil, and all the other microorganisms that are there. You can only see them under a microscope. But we want to keep our soil alive. We don't want to use any chemicals to kill any of that fungi. Like quite a few people that grow crops. This is a big market gardening crop growing area around where I am. And of course they use fungicides and all sorts of other pesticides and all other sprays, and they're actually killing that good bacteria and good fungi. So we're not getting the good nutrition that we should be.
No.
So yeah.
And you can see it. You can actually see it in the soil where the commercial growers are, how the soil doesn't even look like soil. It looks like sand, doesn't it? Because they then have to pump it full of fertilizer to actually get the artificial fertilizers to get the plants to grow. So often we think that we're eating healthy, but actually the plants that we're eating, if they've been commercially grown, are just nutrient bereft, aren't they? They don't have any nutrients in them.
Well, they have some. They have some, but we're after the best nutrition, and you're going to get that through the bacteria and fungi that's in the soil, and the organic matter that's in your garden or in your pot.
Yes.
Yeah, and as soon as you've got a lot of organic matter and fungi and good bacteria in your soil, it's going to hold water, and it's going to hold air. It's going to there's going to be so much life in that soil that everything's going to be healthy that grows in that soil. Yeah, and I know perhaps if you use a lot of synthetic fertilizers, I don't think it holds the water very well. That's probably why they have to irrigate twice a day sometimes. It just doesn't hold the water. So yeah, whereas organic matter in the soil holds the water in it, so you don't have to water as much. So great in drought times. Yeah. Yeah, so I just working in the garden, you focus on what you're doing. It's a good meditative process. And yeah, just remember to get your hands dirty. Walk on the earth in bare feet for grounding, because when the energy comes down from the cosmos, from the moon, from the sun, from the constellations, it's coming down into the earth. It actually goes into the earth and then comes back up. So it's either going into the plant or into our feet. So we're getting the benefit of that. So yeah, take your shoes off and walk around the ground, or it's nice walking on the beach without any shoes on. And the interesting thing with the soil is, it's so alive and it breathes out in the morning. So it's doing a big breath out in the morning and all the energy is going up into the plant. And in the afternoon, it's breathing in and all the energy is going down the plant and then into the soil overnight. So if I was going to put a seaweed fertilizer down, which I do once a month at least, I would do it in the afternoon when the soil's gonna just take it down straight away. And then if I was going to spray a herbal tea on a plant that I wanted to keep aphids off, I would do that in the morning when the energy's coming up, and the leaves can just take that straight on. Yeah. So yeah, we forget the soil is actually alive, and it's actually it has a cycle of breathing in and out, out during the morning, in the night. And then it has also that cycle of, in the winter, it sort of goes to sleep and it's resting. And there's a lot of activity happening in the soil in the winter and getting it ready for the spring. And now that it's spring, the soil is coming to life and responding to the sun, the longer sun days, and all the energy is coming out. So over the winter is a good time autumn and winter is a good time to feed that soil with compost and special green crops that can actually add a lot of nutrients. And where was I going with that? Yeah. So there's all these seasonal cycles as well.
So the elements.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So like humans, we respond to the sun. We need that sun. Like at the moment, we haven't seen much sun. It's been raining a lot. It's been raining a lot in New Zealand, and it's so nice to see the sun. And when it does come out, we soak it up and we get all that vitamin D, and it makes us feel good. And we've been over the soil. We need the soil. We can't live without the soil. It gives us the nutrients we need through our food, and animals rely on the earth. And the sun, it has cycles as well. Like in the winter, there isn't much sun. The sun's a lot lower in the sky, and it's a shorter sun day. So not many plants grow in the winter. There's a few plants that need a lot of sun and warmth, and
in the winter we'll only grow like lettuces or spinach. Yeah, or cabbages and yeah. But anything that needs a lot of heat, like tomatoes and melons and pumpkins, you won't get that in the winter. You won't be able to grow those in the winter. So, and now that we're getting more sun and it's warming up, my tomato seeds have finally sprouted.
Not today. Pretty chilly today.
Yeah. So, you know, and the soil, the sun, more sun we get, the soil temperature is going to rise. And we'll be able to grow a lot of summer crops like melons and tomatoes and cucumbers and zucchinis. So, and the sun is giving it, you know, the sun is bringing down so much energy at this time of year.
Especially now with the
Yeah.
flares,
Yeah.
the solar flares
Oh,
that
yes.
have been happening.
Yes, it's been a funny energy week this week. Quite strange. But yes, if you're growing a plant inside on your windowsill or in your conservatory, you're going to have to move it around to make sure it's getting enough sun. And if it's getting too much sun, then we need to give it shade. Like in the summer, my lettuces will not grow in full sun, so I have to grow them in the shade. And then some crops have to have full sun, like pumpkins and melons. And so you can't grow a plant without sun, because that's how it photosynthesizes on the leaves and then takes the sugars down into the roots and feed all the fungi and bacteria. And that fungi and bacteria are going to exchange that sugar for food that the plant can actually use. So that's how a plant gets its food. So you need the sun for that.
And air.
And air, yes.
Air for the roots is really important as well, because if it's waterlogged, your plant will not all plants, obviously. Some plants like water lilies and things love the water, but if you don't have air in the soil, it will kill the plant, won't it?
Well, that's right. Well, the thing is, the soil is alive, so you've got to have air. You can't live without air. No, nothing can live without air. And the more organic matter and the more worms and life you have in your soil, the more air you're going to get into your soil. And then if you're growing a plant, you need that air to actually keep the plant healthy. So sometimes if you're growing a plant inside in the kitchen, it needs a bit of air. Otherwise, it'll grow a bit of mildew or fungus, or it keeps it healthy.
Unbeneficial mildew and fungus.
Yes, and algae. We don't want that growing on our indoor plant. So you've got to just make sure you're getting some air flow too. But outside doesn't seem to be a problem unless you live in a very humid climate. You'd probably be really looking after those plants, taking a little bit of extra nurturing for those. But here we get plenty of wind and airflow, and there's a lot of gases traveling around in the air too, so the plants are picking all that up too. That's another source of food for them and a way to get their nutrients. And of course in a compost too, you can't just make a compost without putting in some sticks and sort of thicker material to get the air, keep the air flowing. Otherwise it would turn putrid and be pretty smelly and wouldn't have any life in it. So air is very important. And water, well, most of our waterways, healthy waterways lead to healthy humans, healthy plants. But how many waterways are very healthy these days. We don't seem to respect our waterways, our lakes and our rivers. But I'm lucky here. I can collect rainwater. It's important to collect rainwater if you can, because the plants don't like the municipal tap water, which has usually got chlorine and fluoride in it. Well, not every water's got fluoride in it, but a lot has these days. So if
Chlorine kills the bacterium, doesn't it?
yes, that's right. Yeah, the soil doesn't like the chlorine in the water. It does.
There's a keriru and a tui up in the trees.
Oh, how nice. Yeah, I love all the bird life I have, especially the wood pigeons. They're huge and they're heavy, like a jumbo jet flying over.
I might be able to show you something.
But with water, if you can collect rainwater, that is the best water to use in your plants, your indoor plants or your garden. And if you don't have the opportunity to collect rainwater or have spring water or creek water, fill up a bucket and just leave it outside overnight or a couple of nights, and hopefully the chlorine evaporates. You can also put mint, good old mint, and put just pick a couple of stalks and put it in the bucket of water, and the mint overnight will absorb all the toxins, all the metals, and you're going to have this beautiful clean water the next day. And then you take the mint out and you would put that in the rubbish, because it would be then full of all the toxins that it just took out. That's another way to get good water. And when I go to, like, here's my glass of water. So yeah. So it was another way to change water, because water holds memory, where it originally came from. It has that memory, and it picks up a lot of information as it comes down the line and eventually makes it to you out of the tap. But if I pour myself a glass of water and I'm at a restaurant, especially, or at someone's house where they've got municipal water with chloride in it, I always, because you've got a lot of energy in your hand, and I always put my hands around the glass and I ask this water to be transformed with love into the highest quality water that will nourish every cell in my body. And so long as you do, you sort of have that intention and love on that water, and you hold it for about 30 seconds, it seems to be the magic number.
Quite a long time.
But you can be sort of doing, people might think you're a bit weird, but it's like, if you maintain eye contact with everybody, they don't even realize what you're doing. But that's how you can actually change it. Water's responding to your words and your vibration. But water, it does respond to the spoken word, even the written word. So, and it does work. This really does work, because
it changes the taste.
Yeah, it takes away that chlorine taste. And so yeah, water's amazing, an amazing entity. It's almost alien. Yeah. Yeah, I can't leave it there. Oh yeah, we spoke about all those, but yeah, all those elements humans need: earth, water, sun, and air. So does the soil, so do the plants, so do the animals. We're all connected. We don't realize, but everything is energy. We're all connected. Everything is connected, and I think we forget that. yeah, once we realize that we're all connected and we're all energy, we might start living in harmony with nature and yeah, all those things.
Yeah.
yeah.
Next slide.
Next slide. Thank you. Yeah, so compost. Yeah, compost is full of microbes, and it's the organic matter that we're trying to put into our soil, into our potting, into our pots to keep our plants fed and healthy. So everybody should make compost, whether it's just you're collecting your food scraps from the kitchen, and you might want to have a plastic bin outside where you can empty that food scraps into and layer it with fallen leaves or something just to give it a bit of air and carbon. Yeah, the leaves were a great carbon source, and the scraps are usually full of nitrogen. And
I have a pile, literally a pile outside that is, I just put everything in the
Yeah.
pile, and it just gets layered over time because I put my food scraps on there, and then the next thing usually is some garden waste, and then more food scraps, and so I'll put potash on there from my um fireplace, and just it all, and now I take it from the bottom, and the bottom of the pile is always this rich, beautiful soil.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, we're trying to recycle everything from our kitchen and from our garden and the fallen leaves. We're trying to recycle that, and so we can put it back into our garden, into our soil, or make our own potting mix or whatever we want to do. But it's all dark brown. We're trying to achieve this dark brown soil again. Yeah, I'm lucky to have a wild area. It's sort of all native trees, and it just is self-sustaining. It just looks after itself. And I think this is the soil at the bottom of that native wild area. It's amazing, velvety, dark soil. And it's got, the neighbours' chickens go in there. I've got
All the birds.
yeah, all the birds, and I'm sure there's plenty of rats, and it's doing its own thing. It's like it's a whole self-sustaining loop, closed loop system when you have a wild area, and you just leave it look after itself. And but when we're growing a vegetable garden, we've got to help it, and we've got to physically make the compost and make sure that we're feeding it all the time. So that compost, I think compost is so easy for anybody to do, whether it's just recycling your food scraps or collecting autumn leaves and storing them in a pile or a little wee wire cylinder enclosure. I have compost all around my property, and one of them full of my kitchen food scraps, and one of them's got autumn leaves in it, and another one's got cow manure or horse manure. And then when it comes to autumn, I just mix them all together and make one big pile. And yeah, leave it over winter, and then it's ready to use in the spring on my garden. So organic matter is the key. Get microbes to feed the plants, which feed us and nourish us. So an animal manure is really important. Quite a few gardeners don't think animal manure is important, but it actually adds
fertility and vitality. So if you don't have animal manure, plants actually lose vitality over the years, and they just don't thrive. So, and if you don't have, well, like the old days, you used to be able to have cows and sheep in your backyard, but that's no longer. So you can go to the garden shop and buy sheep pellets and chicken pellets and all sorts of things now. But yeah, I'm lucky enough that I live in the country and I can I have access to cows next door, and I know that they're well looked after. So, and my daughter has horses, and she's very holistic the way she looks after them. So I'm very lucky, and I have chickens as well. So I have plenty of chicken manure. Yeah, so animal manure is so important. It has has so many good microbes in it, and yeah, from their gut. Yeah. Yeah, that's the whole thing, is we've all got this good bacteria in our gut, and so have animals, and then it comes out, yeah, in their manure, which we use. And then so it's important, no matter whether it's your garden or whether it's your compost, or it's even just when you dig a hole in your soil, you have to make sure that there are layers. There's, you've got to make sure there's plenty of drainage, and yeah, it's making sure that nothing, like some soils are so compacted, it's just there's no air, there's no
concrete.
Yeah, and so you automatically, if your soil was just all clay and compacted and very dense, you would probably start getting a lot of dock growing or buttercup growing in your lawn or garden, because those plants are trying to create drainage and air. So yeah, weeds are, whatever weeds are growing in your garden or lawn gives you a lot of information on what's good about it or what's not good about
What's
it.
happening in the soil. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I actually do have a bit of dock in my lawn, so I just leave it. I do take the seeds. I do chop the seeds off because I don't like the seeds, but I just let it be and let it help heal the soil and aerate it. And I have a bit of buttercup too, so my soil could be, very compacted and maybe acidic. And if you get thistles, like if you've got thistles in your soil, you've got a copper deficiency. So I quite like to.
Gosh, I've got all of those.
If I come across thistles, I like to harvest them and make a tea out of them. Soak them for a few weeks in some water, and then I'll pour it back onto the land. Try and speed the process up of giving it the copper it needs.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and blackberry is another one. I mean, we all like the blackberry fruit, but telling us our soil may not be quite right.
Oh really? There's lots of blackberry, there's lots of thistle, and there's lots of dock on my property. I'm buggered. Yeah.
Yeah. So the soil, the layers of the soil can tell you a lot. Next slide. Thank you. I think we've done it. Understanding the sun.
Yes.
Yeah. So we've talked about that, how the sun is so important because it's the leaves are using it to photosynthesize and make sugars, which is going down to the roots and feeding the bacteria and fungi, and that bacteria and fungi are eating all those sugars and doing an exchange and giving the plant the nutrients it needs to actually grow.
Mm.
and feed us. Yeah. And yeah, it gives it color and strength. Like it'll give it, yeah, they won't be weak plants. They'll be very strong plants, the more sun they get.
Mm.
Yeah, it's like, next slide, thank you. Oh, what are these things with color?
Yeah, you could just go through them quickly.
Yeah. So yeah, collecting your rainwater, avoid tap water. You know, when you've got your pots inside, you're going to have to. You just look at them and you'll be able to tell if they need water. But it's usually indoor plants are watered once a day. And we've talked about how to get the chlorine out of that water, or and changing the water. But yeah, if you can, just collect some rainwater. And the good thing about growing in the garden is if you've got plenty of organic matter, it's holding a lot of water anyway and doesn't need a lot of watering. And if you cover the soil with like barley straw or mulch, it's going to need even less water. But obviously during the summer when we have dry periods, we're going to have to water most days.
And how do you water, Jan? How do you, like if you, when and how do you water? Do you just spray it over the top, or do you go underneath, or how do you water your?
If I'm watering in the morning, I can just water the whole plant, because it's going to evaporate anyway off the leaves. But if you were watering in the afternoon, I like to water just the soil, because I don't want any fungal problems with water sitting around on the leaves overnight.
I heard that if you water in the morning, you run the risk of actually burning the plant because of the water sitting on the plant with the reflection. Is that true?
I don't think so.
It's just something I heard.
It's going to evaporate. I think if it was summer, it would evaporate pretty quickly. And
yeah,
I don't think that would be.
Yeah.
The only thing that's going to hurt is frost or.
But that would happen if you watered the plant overnight, sort of thing, and there was water on the plant. But that would only happen in winter anyway, where you're not actually you're not watering much anyway. We've just had a huge peredu or wood pigeon flies just above our heads across to the tree.
Yeah.
The birds are going nuts.
This is their flight path.
Okay.
Huge birds, aren't they?
They are. They're like Boeing 707s.
Yeah. Next slide, thank you, Maya. Yeah, airflow. Yeah, we've
that.
yeah, just make sure that if you're growing in your plants inside, take them outside. Take them outside to get some air, or open the window, and air in the soil. We need to, we generally till or hoe the first sort of like 2 centimeters of the soil to try and get some more air in. And like if it was drought time, if we couldn't water, didn't have access to water, you would, in the evening, you could just hoe up the soil against the plants, or just move the soil around, and it would gather in lots of air and moisture from the atmosphere, and would save you watering. Well, in drought times you don't have the luxury of a lot of water, but yeah, just hoeing the soil can add a bit more air and moisture.
adding more, just keep adding mulch for all those microbes and insect life to turn into, to aerate the soil and turn into food. And pests, well, generally if your soil hasn't got the right nutrients in it, the plants are not going to be strong enough to handle pest attacks. We don't have a lot of diversity these days because a lot of people are using pesticides, and so it makes a lot of these modern hybrid seeds and plants very susceptible to pest attack. And so observation is the key. Just keeping on top of, watching, seeing what's happening and taking action, and using your herbal remedies to help.
But also definitely.
Yeah, I know Rudolf Steiner, he said, the industrial revolution with agriculture, he said it's great short term, but long term, he predicted that the bee population would collapse in the year 2000. So we've witnessed that, because there's just so many people using those modern pesticides that it really has threatened the insects, and so we don't have the diversity that we used to, and especially the bees. I mean, what's been promoted now? We've got to start planting flowers and bee-friendly crops now, just to try and get some more bees.
Yeah, and all the new viruses that have come up and killed the bees. Is really interesting.
And we can't, we won't have any crops without the bees. They do all the pollinating. So, I know. Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I know there's not many of us on here today. But yes, does anybody have any questions? Am I going in the right direction? Have I missed something?
Jan, I do, and this is fabulous, thank you. I live in a climate, well, I don't really have that much in the way of seasons like you do there. I rather miss them, but yes, we're a little bit colder in the winter, but we're pretty much warm, especially during the day, all year round here. How does that impact just how we do things in the garden? Because you're more defined in your seasons. So if I was to get a biodynamic calendar, for example, how would that help me in the warmer climate?
Well, it's still a biodynamic calendar is still going to help you because it tells you what's going on.
It's regional, isn't it?
Yes, like yours would be an Australian one. I've got a New Zealand one. Yours would be an Australian one, because you would get one from an Australian Biodynamic Association, and so there would be a whole lot of information that you could use and guidance. But yes, we are so lucky to have 4 seasons, which the garden, the plants need. They really benefit from those 4 distinctive seasons. And I mean, I think you do have defined seasons where you are. It's just a lot warmer, and you would be growing different crops. Like obviously all your tropical plants would go very well, and sometimes you can manipulate your environment to grow certain things, but nothing changes. I mean, the moon's still going to be influencing you. The constellations and the cosmic energy is still going to be influencing everything you do in your garden. But you're going to have a lot of, I guess you get high humidity too.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, which some plants just wouldn't like.
No, that's right. Well, Brenda's probably worse off than me up where she is, but for example, I'll get to December and I won't grow any lettuces unless I have
Yeah,
to.
no.
Just too humid. Anything with big leaves is quite disastrous.
Yes, exactly. And it's like here in summer, it's like everything with any lettuces or, you know, with spinach is growing in the shade. I just choose a shady spot. And I don't know, but yeah, I know what you're saying. It's like you would only be growing lettuce and those things in the winter. So you have to adapt to your climate and your environment,
That's
and you garden accordingly. Yeah.
I guess the plants get a bit confused. I was thinking when I worked in the Pacific in Nauru, where it was hot day and night, I noticed that what was growing, and well, there was a lot of things just didn't grow at all. And things like frangipanis and that, they just flowered all year round. And I thought they must feel a bit confused. You know?
Yes, but they still did well.
Oh, they were fabulous, but there was lots
Yeah.
of things that we grow. I would think it's probably because the soil was phosphate and it wasn't very balanced, but it was quite stark. Living there, the contrast was huge with this heat day and night, and it's just really got me thinking this morning listening to you how do those kind of countries produce a balanced range of food, and I guess the answer is some of them don't.
No, that's right. That's right. I mean, you generally grow what grows in your environment, really. Certain
Yes,
plants
exactly.
are, they grow better in certain areas, in certain soil and climate condition.
I think as humans, we've manipulated so many things. But if you, if you observe what is naturally growing,
Yes.
I think then you can't really go wrong, because then you can plant similar. It might not be that you can have apples and peaches and things like that. But I guess that's up to where you live.
Yes, that's right. And sometimes those old-fashioned heirloom seeds and plants, you can, look back 100 years, what was growing in your area, that would be really interesting to know.
I'm
But
not that old.
No, just kidding.
I know you. But that's I mean, those heirloom seeds and plants, I mean, they are normally naturally disease resistant, especially if they come from your area, if they, history of being in your area. But I mean, at the end of the day, everything's a hybrid these days, isn't it? There's not much. There's not much. Not much that isn't a hybrid now. Unless somebody saves some heirloom seeds. Yeah, I remember. But you'd be able to grow bananas.
It's interesting you say that. A friend of mine just gave me a hand of bananas last weekend, and they were just delicious, very sweet.
So everything homegrown is amazing. It's like, I remember, my grandfather used to have this huge garden in the backyard, which he used to work on. It was perfect, a perfect garden. He'd work in it every day, and he had a beautiful apple tree at the end of the garden, and the apples were just, I can taste it now. It's just so crisp, so delicious. You just don't get apples like that unless they're growing.
No, that's right. My father was like that, Jan. When we lived in the South Island, he was like that. These days I hardly buy apples because they don't taste like those apples.
Right. Yeah, no, I can still taste it today. That it was just
Me
so
too.
delicious to be and mm, yum. But yeah, and I used to have a property in the north, further up in the North Island, and I planted a orchard. It was a mixed orchard, stone and um, you know, pip fruit, everything, citrus. And my intention was to supply tree ripened fruit to well, I would take it to the farmers market, but because if you're not eating tree ripened fruit, you're not getting those antioxidants. And so those antioxidants are so valuable, especially to fight disease, especially, like, yeah, cancer and things like that. You need antioxidants, and you'll get that if you can eat tree ripened fruit. Well, we don't get a lot of that because they generally pick them before they're ripe and then store them in a controlled environment and ripen in a, like a storehouse.
That's right. It's a tragedy. It's a
So
tragedy.
when you can grow your food at home and your fruit at home, you're getting the best nutrition, and they taste a lot better. I mean, homegrown tomatoes are amazing, and cucumbers, amazing. But yeah, I guess you'd struggle, Mary, with growing cucumbers or not?
No, I've had a couple of times had really good harvest with cucumbers, and the next time was just a complete disaster. It's varied quite a lot, but they're
Yeah,
beautiful. I agree with you. There's nothing like it.
yeah.
It's like me with my mulberries at the moment. I just can't keep up. I've just got so many mulberries, I've given them away. But they're fabulous. They're so different,
Fantastic. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. I mean, where I am, I'm very lucky. We can grow anything. We could even grow bananas here if we wanted to. Yeah, it's the right variety.
That's spectacular. How close to the sea? You're pretty close to the sea, aren't you there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Pretty close to the sea. Only about
Couple of kilometers.
yeah. And then on the other side, I've got the Tararua Ranges. So
Lots of
Good
them.
mixture. That's a lovely mix. I might have to move there, ladies.
You'd be most welcome.
yeah.
Shall we take a 3-minute break? And then when we come back, I think Jan is going to do a couple of demos showing you how you can grow your microgreens and pot, maybe pot your plants.
If you've got something inside that you'd like to repot, we could go over that. Because you should repot your plants at least once a year. Give them some more, food and
air.
microorganisms and bacteria and fungi and all those things. Or we can plant some seeds in the pot, and I'll demonstrate how I grow microgreens and sprouts.
Okay. So 3 minutes, is that okay, everyone? Mel? Where have I gone?
Yes, now that I'm off of mute.
You've all disappeared off my phone, so I was like, I hope I haven't cut everybody off. Okay. All right. So when shall we get back, Mare? About 25 past?
Yeah, 25 past.
Okay. Quick pee break.
So should we do the microgreens, demonstrate the microgreens or go straight to the pot first?
All right. My laptop says it's 25 past, so when a few more people pop back on, we can get started.
Right. If I run out of juice, we'll just unmute you. Okay. Right. I think we can start. Right. What are we going to start off with, Jan?
Okay, so I like to make my own. I like to make my own seed raising mix and potting mix. And this one is a seed raising mix. And
What's in it?
so it has, I actually like to use a product called cocoa fiber seed raising block. And it's this big block. And when I put it into a bucket and add water, it turns into 9 liters of, that block turns into, mixed with water, to expands and turns into 9 liters of this lovely, it's a beautiful product, cocoa fiber.
Yeah, I put too much water in mine.
Oh yeah, it'll evaporate. Yeah, it just add a little bit at a time. But it's a great medium for seed raising actually. I like it.
So you put the cocoa mix. What
Yep.
else?
And then I put I add
Bit of compost.
yes, oh no, not to the seed raising mix. I don't actually put the compost in the seed raising mix. What's it called? Perlite. Is
Yes.
it perlite? It's sort of, perlite is a it's like a volcanic glass.
It's really weird because it's
It's
so
a mineral.
light. It feels like
Foam, like foam.
yeah.
Yeah, but it's very glassy and hummusy.
Yes.
It's a great mineral.
It actually looks and feels like polystyrene.
Mm. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And then we've got a vermicelite, which is it just holds moisture, and
Is that worm castings?
you can use worm castings if you want, but no, it's not. It's just another mineral, natural mineral that happens to hold moisture,
Mm-hmm.
and it looks a little bit like cork, actually, little
Oh.
pieces of cork. I haven't got the packet here, but anyway, I've mixed it all together, and
Then you put it in your
so if I just put it in a pot, put it in a pot, and then you water it, This is to plant seeds. You just water it and put whatever seed you want. Like that's actually a bean seed. I like beans. It's a scarlet bean, and I soaked it overnight in water, and it's expanded.
and changed colour.
And it's ready to explode once I put it in the soil. And it creates, it's gonna, I'm just gonna put a bean seed in, and I'm gonna cover it. Your seed, if it's a small seed, you generally just put the same amount of soil on the top.
Oh.
But if it's a big seed, you're gonna have to put it, sort of.
So if you were doing lettuce, which is a minute seed, can you just scatter it over the top and water it in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But I would still put a very fine layer of,
Like a scattering of mix over
very,
the top.
yeah, very fine scattering. Yeah.
Mm.
And so I'm just planting a bean seed because they're so pretty.
Yeah.
They're so pretty and they're easy to grow, but you choose whatever you want. I also I wanted to grow a swan plant too. Keep the butterflies happy.
Okay.
Swan plant is a good thing to do. So that's all you have to do when you plant a seed.
So,
In any pot, any way you want, and just keep it watered every day. Make sure it never dries out until you see it pop out. And
Yeah.
if I just got I've got a whole lot of basil here that you buy it from the supermarket just to put on your windowsill. But I'm going to repot those because I think you can either use them on your windowsill and harvest them and put them into your cooking, or you can
Grow
repot them and get a bigger plant.
Also, if you nip off the top, these bits here, the growing bit, if you look in the side leaves, you'll see tiny little leaves there. You'll get side sprouting happening if you take off the top, I find, in basil. Is that right?
Yes, nip off yeah,
Yeah, nip off the top because quite often
a bit like tomatoes.
yes, and if you don't nip off the top, they go to flower quite quickly, and then you lose the leaves because all the nutrients goes into the flower.
And so I've made some potting mix too, and the only difference between the seed mix and the potting mix is I've added compost. So I've got all those microbes already in here, and it's going to feed the potted plant. So yeah, repot your plants at least once a year, give them some new life. And I also add, I save all my eggshells. I save all my eggshells. They're organic ones. And I dry them in the oven before I crush them in my coffee grinder. So they become dust, and they add a lot of calcium into my potting mix and my compost and all those things. So, and again, it's just perlite I've added to aerate it.
It's very light, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you think about the potting soil that you get, it's much lighter than that by the looks of it.
So I'm just filling up a pot, and yeah, so they're a little bit because it's a root day. I can do whatever I want to the roots, and they're not gonna die on me because it's the right energy to actually handle any roots today. So you can see why those plants don't last long in your kitchen bench because they're pretty much root bound.
Yeah.
So they definitely need some more space. I mean, that's if you want to keep them long term. People just like to use them for a few weeks. And and because it's a root day, I know that I can easily do this without harming.
There's a little baby plant there too.
Or
is that a weed? No, that's this one here.
Whatever it is. Yep, and so I'm gonna put more soil in it. Yeah, so I'm just gonna repot those. Just give them some more space. And yeah, and I'll just so yeah, I'll just nip those out and then they'll bush up.
Do you wanna then water it?
Yeah. Thank you.
You're gonna plant another one in the. Or is that enough?
Oh yeah, I'll just put 3 in there. Yeah, and I'm just gonna water it. I'm going to keep this. I'm just going to keep these on my my outside deck actually.
Oh, good
So
idea.
it's quite a big pot. It's probably too big for my windowsill. And then I'm just going to water that. Keep an eye on that for water levels and
They don't like too much water though, do they,
Yeah.
Basil?
no, they like heat.
They like heat, yeah.
They're going to need to be. They're going to need to be in the full sun. And I make up and I always once a week
Mhm.
I will feed them with either a seaweed spray, as because seaweed has all the nutrients, all the trace elements that a plant needs to grow, and so I will spray that on the soil.
Okay. Not on the plant
No,
itself.
no,
soil.
on the soil. So that's my weekly feed for it, and I also make up I also make up like that's a mint tea in my herbal teapot, and I've let that sit overnight, and that is great for keeping aphids away. And
And you spray that on?
I spray that on the leaves in
Yeah.
the morning if I needed to, because
Mhm.
when you do have indoor plants, you do get you do get aphids and
Yeah.
mites and things.
Do you want to put that back in there?
Yeah.
Whoop.
Yeah.
We'll
And
put this
the
later.
funniest thing, and so that I'm just going to keep that in the.
Seaweed.
I'm going to keep them in the full sun. Yeah, you buy seaweed concentrate, or you make your own, and you use half a teaspoon of seaweed and mix it with water, and shake it. That's all you need. It goes a long way, and it's very beneficial. And I think another one to have on your windowsill is chives.
Yeah.
So useful, and you could do the same again. Just put them into bigger pots and put fewer in,
Mhm.
and you'll get a longer shelf life, really. Yeah, and you'll get new plants. You'll get new plants.
Yeah, they
They
start
multiply.
sprouting, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So you can do anything you like. Do anything you like with anything.
Okay.
Um,
Do you want to talk
so
about microgreens?
and microgreens. I mean, it's always nice to grow your food to the full size, but when you're in between seasons, like we are now in spring, just another way to get some variety into your diet. I quite like growing microgreens, and
Do
you
you
can buy
use the seed raising mix those?
yes,
So
yes. So it's a seed raising mix, and so yeah, you can buy fancy ready-made containers, or you can use
meat
meat
trays.
trays, recycled meat trays, and that's lovely red cabbage, and I just use scissors and I snip them off.
So how would you actually prepare that? I see you've got a
Yeah.
meat tray here. Shall we quickly?
Yeah.
There. So this is
I'll use the little one.
oh yeah. So this is what we get our meat in New Zealand. It's a plastic tray and it's got like this I don't know, like a textured bottom that
Yeah.
that actually collects the blood off the meat. But it's great. It's great for moisture cells, isn't it?
Yes. I mean, for a fancy microgreen container compared to these meat trays, I think I much prefer the meat tray. And I just put my seed raising mix in, and I use a spoon, metal spoon, which is great to firm it down. Yeah, so it just sort of fills the tray up. And then I sprinkle, in this case, I'm using radish. And then you sprinkle your seeds. You sprinkle your seeds all over. It takes a lot of seeds. But it's just giving you a bit of variety in between seasons or in the winter, perfect for in the winter. And then I'm going to put another layer of seed raising mix on top. So it's all covered, all the seeds are covered now. And then I'm going to use a trigger spray. This is the, what do you call these? The spray bottle with a trigger action top. And that's the best thing to water microgreens with. And you've got to do this every day. So every morning, that's what I do. I spray those, and within 3 days, you'll see the sprouts come up.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah. You can see, they can see you. Ella.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Yep, so that's microgreens, and that's the result you're looking for. And then you can start
So what kind of seeds?
snapping them off.
What kind of, any seeds? Absolutely any seeds, or?
Yeah, just use your imagination. Because they're
Yeah.
not growing to the full plant, so anything that's just got 2 or 4 leaves on it is
And once you've harvested it, does
they-
it grow back?
no.
No.
So unfortunately,
That's
that's why. Yeah.
Okay.
And so that's how you do microgreens, and they are quite messy. I just keep them in a tray in my sunny laundry, and so I can spray them. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can spray them every day without making a mess.
Maya, you're very industrious there. I can see you.
Yeah, I'm having fun. I'm just
And this, yeah.
I'm just curious. So I've got a couple of little pots I'm gonna put on my windowsill. And then I have some bigger pots. I got 2 bigger pots. And I'm gonna try some microgreens in the little ones, which I realize it's not gonna be a huge volume. And then I've got some bulbs that I planted in the bigger ones. Because it's not spring here, and it's a little hard to find seeds that are appropriate for this, but we'll get there.
Indeed.
Yes. But yeah, I buy all my seeds for microgreens in bulk from we got the bin in here, and they're a lot cheaper, and yeah. But if you can buy organic seeds, I mean, the whole point is the organic seed has got it's got the bacteria in the seed, and it's going to give you the ultimate nutrition. But these are eating these microgreens, you're getting so much goodness out of them.
It's a superfood, isn't it?
Superfood, yeah.
Okay.
And then when I do sprout, I've got mung beans, and I've got a preserving jar, and I've got a special top, but you can use muslin. It's an aerated top.
Yeah, so here's muslin.
Or you can just put muslin over the top with a rubber band, and use it as your strainer, because you've got to rinse them once a day. So I'm using mung beans. They're my favorite sprouts.
And we're already starting to split.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've soaked them overnight, and then I tip the water out.
It doesn't.
Yeah. So yeah, I've tipped the water out. And
Pour some in.
yeah, and then and then you fill it up with water, and you rinse them once a day. You shake them and rinse them, and make sure the water is tipped out again. So all you're rinsing them, you're just rinsing them.
And then you just leave them like that. You don't actually leave them in water.
Yeah.
They're
Dry.
They're dry actually.
And then when they start sprouting, and usually in 2 days, in 2 days, you can change the lid. I've changed my lid to a larger mesh lid to let more air in. And so, yeah, you're still just rinsing them once a day, and then they start to sprout, and then they grow leaves. And I generally eat them when they've got one set of leaves in, you know, 2 leaves, or you don't need to wait for those leaves. You can just eat them and add them to, they're a great snack, add them to your salad. And
Stir fries.
stir fries, yeah. But yeah, mung beans are my favorite, and alfalfa would be the next one. But you can do anything you like. You just use your imagination. So that's how you do sprouts.
What's the benefits of eating sprouts and microgreens rather than the whole adult plant, so to speak? What
Yeah, well, I think
nutrient dense, isn't it?
I still think the best option is to eat full grown plants, but in between seasons, these are sprouts and microgreens are fantastic. And if you don't have a garden, they're fantastic to use, and they just add a bit of variety to your meals, and they're great and just good snacks, good healthy snacks. It's just a space saver too. It's just, you know, you have lots of options these days. Grow food and eat food. And what's next on the list?
I think it's questions now.
Oh, the funniest thing with these sprouts that I've done, I soaked and started the sprouting process 8 days ago. And the weirdest thing this week, there must be something going on with the energy around, but they just haven't sprouted. They haven't grown. Because 3 days later, 3 or 4 days later, I should have really big, long, sprouted mung beans, but they haven't done much all week. It's really quite weird. Very weird.
Something strange is going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Solar flares or something.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to know how that
Yeah.
affects it.
Indeed.
Mm.
Has anybody got any questions? I think we're pretty on track with time. What do you think, Mav?
Okay,
Mav got a mouth.
you can hear me, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I think we're good. I'm just looking at the slide deck. Did you want to talk about fertilizer ideas?
Again, I tend to pick whatever's in my lawn or my garden and make a tea, and which means soaking it overnight and you know, like making a pot of tea and then straining it and then spraying it on the plant. I know Rudolf Steiner always said that if you're going to feed a plant, it should be a tea made out of the flower, because humans usually respond better to like the roots of the plant if you're making a medicine or a tea. But when you're feeding a plant, the flowers are usually best. So I go around and pick flowers. Dandelions are great. They've got so much in them: calcium, phosphorus, just so many things in dandelions. So I use dandelions a lot, and I just make a pot of tea and strain it and spray it on the soil or the leaf on the soil because I'm feeding the plant.
Seaweed.
And seaweed, yes, the strange thing with the seaweed's in a square or rectangle container, because everything is alive. Yeah, everything is alive, and everything is energy. And it's like when you buy a bag of compost from the garden centre or your seed mix,
there's always a warning on the packet when you open it to wear a mask because of the gas, you know, it could be not good to be.
Legionnaires' disease
Yes.
is what they are.
And it's because it's alive and it has no way of breathing in that plastic bag. And when you open that bag, it's like, whoo, all that energy and gas comes out. And it's even worse at the full moon because there's just so much energy around the full moon. Plants just take off. And it's a good time, also a good time to feed your plants around the full moon. I usually do it 3 days before the full moon because the plant's just going to take all that nourishment and grow even twice as fast. But so I used to sell, one of the products I used to sell was a local seaweed product. And we would buy it in bulk and then we'd put it into bottles and supply it to garden centres and our online shoppers. And of course, it was a round container, it was a round bottle.
Rather than
And-
a square one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we started to put it in a round bottle. And so there's something about the cosmic energy that resonates with curves or circular, anything circular. So around the full moon, these bottles of seaweed that we supplied the shops, they would swell and they would explode because the full moon was, you know, all that energy was bringing it to life, extra life.
Oh, wow.
So it was expensive and a big mess to clean up. So that's why we have to put things into square or rectangular containers because
It doesn't.
So energy is all about
Well, nature is based on circles, isn't it?
based on,
Everything
you know, vortexes and circular movements. So I think that's really interesting. And you know, and you can't kill that compost in that plastic bag. It's alive, and yeah, that's why when you open it, it's just
I've noticed that the compost that I buy now, they've got perforations at the top of the bag now to let the gases out.
yeah.
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 And plants, and there's gases through the air all the time, and that's, as I said before, that's another way that plants are actually getting some of their nutrients as well. So that's really interesting about well, nature, you don't see any square straight lines or anything. It's everything's curved. And
So would you recommend storing anything in a round container rather than
yes,
a square one?
yeah.
And for those of us who are by the beach, how would you, if you collected seaweed off the beach, how would you prepare it for the garden? Would you just chuck it in the garden or in your compost, or?
You can do whatever you want. You can just place it around a tree, and of course, every time it rains, it's going to leach into the soil. Or I would dry it and put the lawnmower over it and put it into the compost. Or I would put it into a big 80-litre plastic container with a lid, and I would fill it with rainwater, and I would leave it for 6 weeks, and I stir it once a day, and it would be my fertilizer.
You can do the same with a fish, can't you?
Oh,
there.
fish. Yes, I do the same. I do the same with people give me the leftover fish heads and bones, and I make a similar concoction.
Just with
It's
water.
very smelly though.
It
It's
is.
very smelly. I tend to use barley straw. I tend to put barley straw on the top because barley straw is fantastic. The fact that it always floats for a start, and it just absorbs all the odors and makes it more pleasant to open up each day and stir.
I've got a whole fish in the freezer that I keep meaning to do that with.
Yeah.
So
anything from the sea is fantastic for the health of your plants.
mineral.
And it's easy enough
you know, if you have got the space, to actually just put it in a big bucket of water with a lid and let it just soak for 6 weeks or something. So, but yeah, seaweed has the most trace elements of anything, you know, anything you collect to make a fertilizer or put into your compost. Or so I do like seaweed as a fertilizer. But it has to be good though, because you know, if you collected the seaweed from, I don't know, Asia or something, it could have a lot of top metal, you know, like toxic
mercury and
heavy metals. Whereas hopefully in New Zealand we don't have that problem.
Not as much.
So yeah, you have to be careful where you get your seaweed from. Otherwise it's just compost. To me it's compost, and it's seaweed and fish fertilizers and all my herbal teas, which I find keeps the plant healthy and alive, and repotting from time to time.
Awesome. Thank you,
So-
Jan.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, we're at 5 minutes of the hour, basically. I was wondering if anybody had any last questions.
Jan, fantastic. Thank you so much. I don't have any questions. I have more answers than I have questions today. I think you ladies have done well, and it's beautiful to have looked at your garden and seen what you've been doing. It's just fabulous. What knowledge you have. Thank you so much. And thanks, Kelly, for the filming.
Yeah. No, Kelly's been a fantastic assistant today.
No, when I'm not being distracted by the birds and the and the bees
right.
and it's amazing out here.
Jan, I hope Kelly's hourly rate's not too much for you, you know.
I don't charge Jan anything. The energy exchange between the two of us is pretty much equal.
Yes, yeah, and we share a lot. We share all our plants and produce. We have different things in our gardens. Yeah,
and I think it's sorry. Carry on.
Kelly and Jane, obviously you have a lot of fun in your gardens, and you have a beautiful weather over there that actually produces something absolutely phenomenal. Last year I actually planted and got the fruits of some zucchini and beetroot and different types of herbs. About probably only about 4, mint and parsley and coriander. And anyway, to prepare the soil, it was sandy soil where I was, and so I put a lot of mulching in it, and also, you know, fertilizer and things, not organically like you have actually produced, but I had to succumb to the shops and do it that way. But it was beautiful to just go and reap the garden. You know, the taste is different, and it's so much better for you. So I've moved, so I probably won't have that type of garden unless I make it big pots or something. But our planting time here in North Queensland is March, and we then plant for winter, and that goes through until about September. So usually March and September are two months that we that we garden quite rigorously. So although we have different different climates. I think that if we can benefit from our garden in any way, shape, or form, it's much better than going to the shop.
Yeah.
So thank you for today. It is very, very informative, and I'm in awe of your garden at the background there.
Yeah, this is just one side of my garden. I have another beautiful area on the other side of the house. Yeah. I'm very blessed, and today, and thank you for your comments. That was really good feedback. And are you still on sand?
No, I'm not. I'm on clay, but
Oh yeah,
and Townsville's
completely two opposite
full of
things.
clay.
Yeah,
Gypsum
yeah, lots of dolomite and gypsum.
and lots of humus. I'm on clay too, Brenda, and it gets it gets in the dry season. It's like concrete.
Yeah,
If I don't compost it all the time, it literally goes like concrete.
Yeah, you've got to keep adding organic matter. Just keep adding organic matter and using gypsum in the autumn. Well, you put it down now. Yeah. For you.
You were talking about bananas. A friend of mine gave me a sucker, and I wasn't in Townsville at this time, but I just planted the sucker, and it was near like a drain, and I thought, oh yes, it'll do really well there. Well, it did more than really well. Yeah, we had bananas like crazy because you had to.
Oh my God!
And they were the little lady fingers, and they were just absolutely gorgeous.
Oh,
so I had to race to get the bananas before the possums got them. But they were beautiful, and last year I actually grew pawpaws, which was just beautiful. And of course, you've got to have the male and the female, but we eventually got the male and the female, and they produced these beautiful pawpaws. So yeah, all good.
Wow.
Oh, and I'll tell you about that. Sorry, I'm taking up a lot of time here. But seaweed and shellgrit, and so we used to go along the beach, get because there's once or twice a year the seaweed would actually come in big amounts of seaweed up onto the beach, and take that home and take the shellgrit home and do a fair bit of washing with it, and then put that into your garden, and we just laid it into the garden, and it was just beautiful. But it seemed to break up the soil, and also the soil seemed to be developing a real nutritious type light soil. I don't know whatever happened.
Yeah. Well, that's great observation. That's exactly what gardening's all about, and experimenting, and just doing it any way you can is better than not doing it all.
Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Any other? Please use it. I'll turn it round.
No, I think we're good.
Yes. Besides the the very strange start, it's been a wonderful morning. So I just want to thank Jan, and for all of you who have stuck around who got over themselves after that very strange start. Actually, Mary and I were laughing because what was happening was so bizarre. And the things it's amazing how technology can be so hacked these days. But so apologies for that. That was certainly not part of the plan. And so thank you for all of you who are here and for anyone who watches this. I know that there was a lot of interest in this episode, and Jan has delivered more than more than what we expected. And so thank you. Thank you for everyone, and especially Jan. And Maya, thank you for driving the bus.
You're very welcome.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Okay.
We'll see you next week.
Yes.